The full set list for Japan's next set, Ninja Spinner, is here. This is going to be our second set of the year. Our first one being Perfect Order, which I think releases in a couple of weeks' time. I think it's next week at the time this video going up. And Ninja Spinner will also be coming out this week at the time of this video going up. This set I haven't preemptively looked through because I've been pretty busy past couple of weeks. I've also been a little bit sick, so I haven't really had the time to do this stuff, but there are a couple of cards that I've seen from initial reveals that were like alright and pretty decent. But in this video we're going to be going through the entire set list. If there's anything that I missed, do let me know in the comments if you think it's worth talking about, so on and so forth. Also, I think all of these translations should be fine, because in the Perfect Order video there were some translations that were off, because I made that video like as soon as the set list dropped. So hopefully there's no mistranslations in this video. So we're going to start off with Beedrill EX. This is a 310 HP grass-type Pokemon with the B Rumble attack. Does 110 damage times the amount of Beedrill you have in play, including Beedrill EX. Now this seems pretty strong, 1 energy for 110 damage for each copy of Beedrill you have in play. However, the only Beedrill we will have in the game is this one. There was one released in 151, but 151 is rotating, so this is the only Beedrill we're going to have in the game, which means you're going to have to get multiple stage 2s into play in order to do a bunch of damage. I believe Beedrill has had similar attacks like this before. I'm not sure if those cards were good or if they saw play, but it's interesting for if we get any other Beedrills later on. I'm not sure if Mega Beedrill will count because it specifically says Beedrill and then it's in parenthesis including Beedrill. It's like they had to add that part. So I imagine it probably won't work if we get a Mega Beedrill, but like it's interesting, but I don't think it will see play. Next up, Chestnut with its Needle Armor. If this Pokemon is in the active spot and is damaged by an attack from your opponent's Pokemon, even if this Pokemon is knocked out, place 3 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon for each grass energy attached to this Pokemon. And this attack for 2 grass and a cold does 160 damage, and during your opponent's next turn, the defending Pokemon can't retreat. So 3 damage counters for each grass energy on this Pokemon, so if you have the energy to fulfill its attack cost, that's 90. However, we have received quite a lot of grass support in like the past couple of sets, especially with Mega Evolution. We got stuff like Mega Venusaur, obviously the Stadium, and we also have Meganium, which Meganium says that each grass energy counts as 2 grass energies. So if you have Meganium in play and this has the free energy for its attack, that means if your opponent attacks into this, they're going to take 180 damage, which is kind of insane and pretty strong. Plus this attack is basically a retreat lock, so you could basically force a Pokemon into the active, and then your opponent would obviously need to like try and get it out, or they might want to just like swing into it, and if they do swing into it, then they're going to get hit back for a lot of damage, especially if you have, again, Meganium in play. And its attack for 160 is like not that bad. Plus, getting grass energy into play is really easy with stuff like Teal Mask. And again, we have stuff like Mega Venusaur, which can just move it wherever it wants. It's pretty strong support for grass decks. Next up, Delphox with its Flare Magic. Once during your turn, you may discard a basic fire energy from your hand in order to use this ability. Draw cards until you have 7 cards in hand. On a stage 2, it's going to take time to get into, but it's still a pretty decent ability. This attack for 2 fire energy Storm does 30 damage for each energy attached to all Pokemon in play, both yours and your opponent's. I'm not really sure if there are any like decks in the format that like accelerate tons of energy into play, but 30 damage for each energy currently in play is pretty decent against some decks. But again, it's a stage 2, so it's going to take time to get into, and it is 2 fire energies, so you're going to have to attach twice. But it's still an interesting card purely for its draw support. And then we have our first Mega of the set, Mega Pyro EX, with its Ferocious Bellow for 1 fire and a colorless, 80 damage, and during your opponent's next turn, the defending Pokemon does 50 less damage. That's not pretty good. And then its second attack is not much better. This is one card I have looked at, and this card is not very good. 2 fire and a colorless, Big Bang Fire, 90 damage with a minus. This attack does 10 less damage for each damage counter on this Pokemon. Why isn't it 10 more damage? Well, then again, I think you'd be hitting for way too much damage. But this card is not very good, but it's a Mega. It's an EX, so might as well include it in the video. Next up, Keldeo with its Penetrate for 1 water does 20 damage, and it also does 20 damage to one of your opponent's benched Pokemon. It's just a decent bench sniping Pokemon, like good for water decks, and just like sniping something on the bench. 20-20, pretty good. And then we have the cover card Mega Greninja EX with its Mortal Shuriken. Once during your turn, if this Pokemon is in the active spot, you can discard a basic water energy in order to place 6 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon, and then its attack for 2 water, Ninja Spinner, does 120 damage, and then you can put a water energy attached from this Pokemon into your hand to do 80 more damage for a total of 200. This card is pretty much identical to Greninja Break from the X and Y era. I'm not sure if it needed to be in the active to use this ability, but that card and that deck was very, very good for the time, and 6 damage counters is a very convenient number. You could pair this with something like Mega Absol. You put Greninja into the active, discard a water to put 6 damage counters on something, and then bring in Mega Absol and just instantly KO it with Terminal Period, which is already looking like a way people are going to be playing this card in decks. That's going to be fun. And then we have a Mega Floette EX. Gentle Light for 1 Psychic, heal 30 damage from each Pokemon, both yours and your opponent's. I don't know why you would do that. And then its other attack for 3 Psychic, Eternity Bloom, does 200 damage, and then you search your deck for 4 basic Psychic Energy and attach them to your bench Pokemon in any way you like. It's like, okay, the fact that you can accelerate 4 energy from the deck is pretty decent, but the attack itself costs 3 Psychic Energy. There's also no like colorless requirements, it has to be Psychic Energy. Pretty mid here and there. There are quite a few cards in this set that are supposed to support it, but I'm not really sure if it's going to see play. Next up, Phantump, as well as Trevenant. I'll include these two together. Phantump has the ability Envious Evolution. Once during your turn, you can use this ability. Choose a card from your hand that evolves from this Pokemon and put it onto this Pokemon to evolve it. If you evolve the Pokemon this way, put 2 damage counters on this Pokemon. So you can basically just evolve it on the turn you put it into play, so on and so forth. But it does say you can't use this ability during your first turn, so you can't just immediately evolve into a Trevenant, so you'll have to do it on your following turn. And then Trevenant with its Cursed Roots, for 1 Psychic, does 30 damage during your opponent's next turn. Energy can't be attached from your opponent's hand to the defending Pokemon. This could be pretty interesting, because your opponent's going to have to find, if you lock something in the active, your opponent's going to have to find another way to switch it out. They can't just attach an energy and retreat. They might have to use a tool, or use Switch, or find another way to get it out. And then it's Overpained for 2 Psychic, 60 damage, and then it does 10 more damage for each damage counter on all of your opponent's Pokemon. That's pretty strong, considering it's all damage on all of your opponent's Pokemon. So basically, you just take all the damage on all your opponent's Pokemon and just shove it on whatever the active Pokemon is. Pretty strong. Pretty good. Plus, you could pair it with something like maybe a Monkey Dory to move off the 20 damage that you took from evolving it in order to get damage onto your opponent's Pokemon, so then you can start doing more damage, so on and so forth. Next up, Gorgeist EX. Horror Rondeur for 1 Psychic, 30 damage. This attack does 50 more damage for each of your bench Pokemon that have any damage counters on them. So you could possibly pair this with Trevenant, put a bunch of Phantumps into play, and then evolve them all into Trevenants, and then you can do 50 damage for each one that has a damage counter on it. I'm not sure if we have any other self-damaging cards in the format. Oh no, we have the Stadium from Mega Evolution that says if you put a non-dark into play, you put 2 damage counters on it. So that's another way you could get damage counters into play. And then if you have, your 5 bench Pokemon with damage counters on them, you're doing, 250 extra damage for 1 energy, 280? That's pretty decent, to be honest. And then it also has Ghost Touch for 140 damage. Discard a random card from your opponent's hand. It's decent hand control, but the first attack is just that much better. Next up, Crobat with its Nighttime Maneuvers. Once during your turn, if this Pokemon is in the active spot, you can use this ability, search your deck for a card, shuffle your deck, and then put that card on top of the deck. So I guess this is kind of like a replacement for Pidgeot, but it has 1 retreat cost. It also has to be in the active spot. It also puts the card on top of the deck, which then means you need to use a draw support or something like that. It's interesting. If it's going to see play, I don't know. Maybe. There's like a couple of things that make it good and there's a couple of things that just make it weird, but it's still like interesting and a decent card at that. Next up we have Cobalion EX with its Metal Road. Once during your turn, when this Pokemon moves from the bench to the active spot, you can move any amount of metal energy from your Pokemon to this Pokemon, and its attack for 2 metal and a colorless does 200 damage, but during the next turn this Pokemon can't attack. Now this may seem bad, but there is a card later on that we're going to get into that actually makes this card pretty decent. You can very easily just move it into the active and then just like shove all the energy onto it, attack, and then possibly, move into another one, shove all the energy on that one and then attack. It's decent, and we have stuff like Archaladon, which is very good at like accelerating metal energy out of the discard and all that type of stuff. Next up, Mega Dragalge EX. For 2 colorless corrosive liquid, discard all Pokemon tools and special energy from all of your opponent's Pokemon. That's pretty strong, considering, you know, tool cards and those special energies aren't really being played all that much anymore because Luminous Energy is rotated, but we have like random other stuff like Prism Energy is something that's seen play in some decks. We also have Neo Upper in Dragapult, but like, that's pretty decent. You can just get rid of everything on the board. And then it's an over attack, Perennis Poison. I have no idea how you say that. For a water and a dark, your opponent's active Pokemon is now poisoned. During checkup, put 16 damage counters on that Pokemon instead of 1. You could stack this with some other like random stuff that puts more damage counters on it, like Perilous Jungle puts an extra 2 on, I think, so you could do 180 damage just from poison. So your opponent doesn't get rid of that Pokemon, then it's just going to take more poison damage. But like, it would have been nice if the attack actually did damage, or its first attack like did damage. It's just a kind of a weird card. But again, it's a Mega, it's an EX. It needs to be talked about. Next up, Patrat with its Watchful Eyes. If this Pokemon is in play, you and your opponent can't move damage counters to other Pokemon. We basically have another anti-Monkey Dory card, and it's specifically move damage counters. It doesn't stop your opponent from like placing damage counters, so you know Dragapult can still ping damage onto it. It's also a colorless, and Rocket's Watchtower is still a thing in the format, but it's like a decent card if we get more stuff that like moves damage counters around. I think they made this purely as an anti-Monkey Dory card, but it is good. And then for the final Pokemon, we have Cincino EX with its Smooth Coat. If any damage is done to this Pokemon by attacks, flip a coin if heads prevent that damage. So you basically have a 50-50 chance of just not taking damage anytime this thing's attacked. That's like pretty decent. And this attack, Energized Sap, does 40 damage for each energy attached to this Pokemon. And obviously it's a colorless, so it's a colorless energy, so you could use like multiple different ways to shove a bunch of energy on this thing and do 40 damage for each one. But its ability is actually like pretty good, and is what makes the card like kind of interesting, because you basically just have a 50-50 chance of just not being damaged every turn. And now moving on to items, supporters and all that kind of stuff, I genuinely don't think there's any other Pokemon really worth talking about from what I could see. Again, if there's something that I forgot to talk about that you feel is worth talking about, do let me know in the comments. First up, Special Red Card. You can only play this card if your opponent has 3 or less prize cards remaining. Your opponent shuffles their hand, puts it on the bottom of the deck, and then your opponent draws 3 cards. This is going to see play. It is an item card that is basically a form of hand disruption, which we currently don't have in the format, except for stuff like, what's it called? Reset Stamp is now like seeing a lot of play in pretty much every deck in Japan. So this is definitely going to see play. Big Catch Net, shuffle up to 3 water Pokemon and up to 3 basic water energy cards from your discard pile into the deck. Basically shuffle 6 like cards into the deck, specifically water stuff. It's also up to, so it doesn't have to be 3. You could shuffle like 2 water Pokemon and then like 2 water energy, so on and so forth. It's pretty good, like very good recursion for water decks. Book of Transformation, this one is very strange. You may play 2 Book of Transformation cards at once. This effect works 1 time for 2 cards. We've had a few cards like this in the past where you can play like 2 of them at the same time and they do one thing. Choose a basic Pokemon in your discard pile and switch it with one of your basic Pokemon in play. Attach any attached cards, damage counters, special conditions, turns in play, and effects remain on the new Pokemon. It's kind of like Ditto from 151, but not very good. Next up, AZ's Tranquility. Switch your active Pokemon with one of your bench Pokemon. If you move a Pokemon EX to the bench in this way, heal 80 damage from that Pokemon. It's kind of similar to Olympia from the X and Y era, which did see a little bit of play because it's a switch and it also heals, but it only heals if it's an EX Pokemon. But it's like kind of good, I guess. I don't really know if it'll see playing anything because there's so many cards in the format to just give you like free retreat or reduced retreat cost anyway. You kind of don't need it. And there's also an equal amount of healing cards, but whatever. Next up we have Philippe. Attach up to 2 basic metal energy cards from your discard pile to one of your metal Pokemon. It's Archaladon, but on a supporter card. Pretty good. That's all there is, it's pretty good. Energy recursion for metal decks, pretty decent. Roxy's Performance. During your opponent's next turn, their poison Pokemon can't retreat. You could kind of pair this with like Dragalge, so you could obviously play this, now your opponent's poison Pokemon can't retreat, and then you use Dragalge's attack to poison it, and it takes like 160 damage from poison, so now they can't retreat it, so then they're going to pass back to you, and it's going to take another 160 damage, which is probably going to KO it. That's like kind of the combo. I can see like a stun type of poison deck. Could be interesting to see, but we'll just have to see if it does end up becoming a thing. And then stadiums, we have Prism Tower and Angie Floette. These are kind of like, these are supposed to like go together and be like support for Mega Floette. Angie Floette says, it says you can only play this card by discarding Prism Tower in play, and you can play this card if you played Prism Tower this turn. So basically you can play it over the Prism Tower if you played the Prism Tower that turn. Basically Mega Floette gets an extra 150 HP. I think that makes it 400 HP. Still doesn't fix the issue by being a bad card. And then Prism Tower, once during each player's turn, you may discard 2 cards from your hand to draw 1 card. Again, I don't really know if that's supposed to be good for the deck, but it's unique to have like stadiums that can like overlap each other. Kind of reminds me of Yu-Gi-Oh! A bit. And then we have 3 special energy from the set, just like with our sets previously. We have a Nitro Energy, which is a fire energy. As long as this card is attached to a Pokemon, it provides 1 fire energy. If an attack used by the fire Pokemon this card is attached to would discard this card, put it into your hand after applying damage and effects of that attack. So it's kind of like Boomerang Energy, but fire, and like, can't really think of any Pokemon that like discard energies for attacks. I guess Megazard, but Megazard doesn't really see play. It's interesting, I guess. Like, it's a special fire energy. I don't really know. Then we have Bubble Energy. As long as this card is attached to a Pokemon, it provides water. The water Pokemon this card is attached to recovers from all special conditions and can't be affected by any special conditions. It's decent, I guess. I mean, I don't know. It's like, some of these just seem way too situational. Like, some of the other ones we've had are like pretty decent. Like, the Psychic one was pretty good. The Fighting one was alright. I think that was it, really. But a lot of these just seem really situational. Like, the Metal Energy is probably the best one from this set. As long as this card is attached to a Pokemon, it provides metal. And the metal Pokemon this card is attached to has no retreat cost. Like, why don't the other two have, like, kind of similar effects like that? But, yeah, the metal one's pretty good. That's what I was saying before with Cobalion. You could have this on it, and now it has free retreat, so you can retreat out, bring up something else, even like another Cobalion, and attach all the metal energy onto it. It also provides a metal energy. I'm not sure if you're able to move it with Cobalion. I'd have to check the text. Let's see. Yeah, it just says any amount of metal energy, so you could actually move the special energy onto a new one, or move it off of a Pokemon onto itself, so on and so forth. But yeah, that's probably the best out of the 3 of them. The other 2 are just like way too situational. And that's it for Ninja Spinner. I don't really know. There's some good stuff in there, but there's also just like a lot of filler. Like, I guess the main good cards from this set, like Patrat's alright. The special metal energy is pretty decent. Mega Greninja is really good. Like, that's probably going to end up seeing play alongside stuff like Mega Absol. That deck's probably just going to become incredibly powerful. And then the Chestnut is alright for like grass decks. But outside of that, the rest of the set is just kind of mid. But I guess that's alright. I mean, we don't really want to have like any massive power creep, because we've just come out of like a pretty strong format, and now we're coming into like a new format. But it'll be interesting to see what pops up. Maybe some stuff in this set that I said was bad ends up seeing play. Maybe some stuff I didn't even talk about in this video ends up seeing play. Again, if there's anything I didn't talk about, let me know in the comments. Let me know your thoughts on this set in general. What are you looking forward to from this set? Personally, nothing for me. But yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments, what you think about this set, what you're looking forward to. I guess secret arts, illustration rares, all that kind of stuff I'm looking forward to. There's a Roxy card. If the full art for that is good, I might get it, because I was going to get the Japanese exclusive one, but I have to wait and see. There's also an Emma card in this set. I didn't talk about it because the card is not good, but that full art is going to be expensive because everyone loves Emma. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. All of that nonsense. Any and all support is greatly appreciated, and you take care.